Good morning. This is Jeff Patterson with the City Public Information Officer with the City of Austin. Welcome you to this media availability with our new Homeless Strategy Officer, Dianna Grey. We'll begin with Dianna making a few statements, and then we'll turn it over to our pool reporter today, Chris Neely from Community Impact Newspapers, to ask questions and share those questions through the WebEx format. Just as a technical matter, if we have any breakdown in communications because of the weather, please stay on and we'll try and get everything reconnected as quickly as possible. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dianna for some introductory remarks. Welcome, Dianna. Thanks for doing this today.
Thank you very much, Christian. I am very happy to be here. As you know, my name is Dianna Grey, and I have now been in the Homeless Strategy Officer position for about 30 days. So I'm happy to finally have a chance to sit down and speak with you all. A little bit about me. I have been doing affordable housing work and work in the area of homelessness for about 20 years. But perhaps as important as that is that I'm a 30-year Austinite. And so coming from that perspective, I share the urgency that I know all Austinites are feeling around this issue and the dedication to solving this in our city. So, you know, one of the things I think that I want to make clear is that we have a lot of strengths in this community. I think that we have largely shared values around how we want to help our neighbors who are experiencing homelessness. We've got some very, very effective nonprofit service providers, but we are now at a point where we really need to come to scale. And so I view my role as a homeless strategy officer as helping the city identify the strategies that are right for our community, working to ensure that during implementation, we're a great partner to our service providers and housing developers, et cetera. And then also ensuring that all of the departments at the city who are involved in this work are coordinating well. So I'm happy to answer your questions.
All right. Hey, this is Chris Neely with Community Impact. Dianna, thanks for doing this today. The first question is from us at Community Impact. Are there any cities you can point to which represent best practices on how to address a growing homelessness problem? Are there any cities that represent a model to which Austin should strive?
Sure. So many cities across the U.S. have made great strides in this area. But I think probably the most relevant for us is the work that has been done in Houston. They, between 2011 and 2019, decreased their homeless count by 50%. So the context is very similar. The resources are similar. We have a lot to learn from them and have already begun implementing some of those same strategies.
All right, the next question is from the Austin Chronicle. What are some ways the city could prohibit camping in a particular area without relying on policing or issuing citations?
Sure. So when an area is designated as a non-camping area, there are a lot of proactive strategies we can take that really aren't coercive. So first of all is communication. Of course, there's signage, but one of the things that we have found in our own experience and in other cities is that continued outreach and engagement by service providers around that site can be really effective at reinforcing the message and also making it well known enough that there begins to be some word of mouth among people experiencing homelessness, which is a very strong channel of communication in our communities and community and in most communities. I think we also look to the built environment. We look to activities in those spaces certainly part of our charge under the HEAL initiative is to come back to council with our best ideas around that. And so we look forward to giving some report on staff research and recommendations come March.
Next is from the Austin American Statesman. Will opening one hotel in every district be enough to house the city's homeless population, or will more need to be done?
I'm glad you asked that, because I think that we need to understand that there are many strategies for ending homelessness, and hotel conversion is just one of them. We have rapid rehousing, which provides temporary rental assistance to folks who are renting apartments across the city. And permanent supportive housing, which is largely what we're using the hotels for, is a very targeted intervention for that small but persistent sort of group of people experiencing homelessness who really need long-term housing with lots of rental support and, probably more importantly, robust services that help them maintain their housing stability.
Oh, there we go. Hey, sorry about that little muting issue. Okay, yeah, the next question is from MyPoint TV. What resources will be provided at the hotel so the homeless citizens can get back on their feet?
Absolutely, thank you. And I think, so in particular, the hotels that have just been approved will be permanent supportive housing. And in those settings, we have robust on-site services. So there are case managers that are in contact with tenants, making themselves available every day to assist them in any number of ways, providing access to mental health services, to transportation resources, and really just kind of working through the challenges of reestablishing that stability in their own homes. So, I think it really is key to understand that this is not just four walls, but we are really providing the supports and services there that will be needed for folks to stay housed and to truly exit their homelessness.
This one's from CBS Austin. Mayor Adler has said the city needs a clear and detailed plan with benchmarks so citizens know when to expect results. What goals and timelines have you set to measure success?
Great. So as you may have heard, we anticipate a community planning process, an intensive community planning process to take place over the coming weeks. And our goal as a community there is to come out with broadly shared goals around increasing capacity in a number of areas. We know we need more shelter beds. We know we need more rapid rehousing. We know we need more permanent supportive housing. And so the idea there is that there are shared commitments to the creation of that capacity. But within that, it will be really important that council and our division identify very clearly what our production goals are, and that we're held accountable to those over the coming months.
Next question is from KUT, and it's referencing the HEAL initiative passed by City Council yesterday. Is there anything that you read in the HEAL initiative that would lead you to believe the city could intend to reintroduce criminalization of camping?
I think that the language of the HEAL initiative resolution as adopted and the message from the dais have been very clear that the charge to my division is to first and most importantly, connect people with housing resources, dedicated housing resources, and also to come up with effective strategies as an alternative to recriminalization.
From KAZI, will there be future collaboration with local and state officials?
Absolutely. And I think it's important to know that there already is collaboration. As an example, Texas Department of Health has had a very effective program over the past 7 years called Healthy Community Collaborative, in which services are funded in local cities for people who are experiencing both homelessness and living with a mental health diagnosis. Those funds have been critical to our work in Austin, as they have been in other cities. And that is a program, I think, that really should be expanded. And we look forward to partnering with the state on that front.
Okay, KXIN asks, what plan does the city have to help the portion of our unhoused community that does not want supportive services?
So first of all, I'll say that while some people experiencing homelessness may initially be reticent about engaging with service providers, building the trust with those individuals is almost always successful. So we meet folks where they are. We continue to reach out and build those relationships. And then we provide those options to people as they are ready to accept them. And again, our experience is when doing street outreach, for example, it may take a while to develop that relationship, but fundamentally people want housing and they acknowledge when they need supports.
This is kind of a related question from Fox. How is the city prepared to deal with individuals who refuse to leave the campsites?
You know, the HEAL initiative doesn't really change anything about the ability to enforce existing camping ban. What it does is direct us to be more thoughtful and more intentional about ways that we can connect folks to housing who are in unsafe encampments and provide those alternatives to citations or enforcement by the police.
Okay, and KView asks, at recent protests, we have heard from neighbors who worry about safety when living near the homeless hotels. As part of your new role, are you working to end stigmas toward the homeless community and better create an understanding for them and how they lost their homes? And if so, how?
Absolutely. So I think that it's absolutely clear to us that we need to be more assertive about communicating with our citizens about what the experience of homelessness is, but also what the solutions are and what that looks like in their neighborhoods and with their neighbors who will at that point have exited homelessness. So that will be something that we roll out over the coming months. In particular, I think we are aware of the need to work very, very closely with our council members when there are proposed developments in their districts and being available as staff to provide as much information as needed.
From the Austin American Statesman, what can the city do to ensure the homeless community gets access to COVID vaccines?
Absolutely. So as you know, as a community, our access to COVID vaccines has been limited, as it is everywhere. But we will be working with our provider partners to identify ways that we can get that vaccine to people who are experiencing homelessness. We have a Healthcare for the Homeless clinic within community care. And so they are going to be just a very important resource in identifying the channels we use to get that vaccine to homeless individuals, particularly those who are in phase 1A or 1B and are vulnerable to the virus.
From the Austin Chronicle, does the city intend to go against CDC guidelines and displace people camping in places where that behavior is prohibited, such as in parks?
So far, the city has really made an effort to comply with those CDC guidelines and to avoid clearing encampments, except in cases where there is a clear and present danger to health or safety. And so, I do want to point out that the idea behind the HEAL initiative is not just to clear encampments. It is to engage actively with people living in encampments and provide them access to shelter, temporary housing, and permanent housing, all of which are the most effective guards against the transmission of the coronavirus.
From My Point TV, how does the city plan to show Austinites the progress and benefit of the purchase of hotels?
Absolutely. So, we have a great community partner in ECHO, who is the nonprofit that leads our local homeless coalition. And one of their key roles is data that tracks our outcomes. So we're going to be able to show the number of individuals in that housing who are able to stay housed over the course of a year and future years. And we're also often able to demonstrate that once stabilized, people's need for emergency room services, EMS, et cetera, really decreases. So we look forward to sharing that data with the community as we move forward.
From CBS Austin, we've been told homelessness is not an issue the city and nonprofits can solve on their own. Do you agree? And if so, how do we increase? If so, how do we increase or expand community investment?
Absolutely. And I think I want to be clear, too, that while the city of Austin is probably the largest investor in homeless services at present, there are already many partners at the table, including Travis County, Central Health, the state, and our philanthropic community. What we need to do, I think, is be more strategic about identifying the best ways for both collaboration and financial resources to come to the table so that we are truly all pulling toward the same goal. We hope that the summit next in the coming weeks will really help us define that and improve our collaboration and expand our resources.
KUT asks, do you believe the sanctioned campsites that are being considered should be considered as housing options in the HEAL initiative? Why or why not?
So I do want to be clear about the difference between housing and temporary shelter. Our goal always is to end homelessness for individuals and move them into a permanently stable place to live. In the interim, because we know we have such a large unsheltered population, absolutely, we will be looking at our options. However, city staff previously have not recommended sanctioned encampments as when compared to other sheltering alternatives. Staff is happy to take a look at that again, but we want to make sure that we choose the strategies that are most effective and that are right for our community and for our neighbors experiencing homelessness.
Okay, from KAZI, does the city of Austin have vacant land or buildings that they could use to house the homeless? If so, will you consider that as a possibility?
Absolutely consider any buildings or land held by anyone that can be utilized to address this problem. The city does, of course, have some land and some buildings. We review those periodically to understand whether they are appropriate for use, for our intended purposes, whether that is a short-term shelter or long-term housing. But just know that that is a part of our process ongoing, and we look for those opportunities wherever we can find them.
All right, from KXAN, is the city preparing in the event that voters reinstate the camping ban in May, and if so, how?
So what I would say is that from my perspective, my division's core work is the same, regardless of what happens with the camping ban locally or at the state level. Our goal and what the community truly needs is strategies to permanently house folks and strategies to provide more humane conditions until people get into permanent housing.
Okay, and I think this is actually our last question. This is from KView. Is there a time limit or goal of how long someone should be allowed to stay in one of the transitional housing rooms and the transitional housing hotels? Or have you tracked how many have moved into permanent housing? I think she's saying, is moving people from transitional housing into permanent housing the end goal?
Sure. So first of all, I think I want to clarify that at present, the hotels that we own and are leasing are all being utilized for the purposes of providing protective lodging for people who are vulnerable to coronavirus and experiencing homelessness, or isolation facilities for those who have been exposed or may actually have tested positive for the virus. So they are not really transitional housing. They are a public health intervention. And the idea is that so long as the pandemic is active, that protective lodging would be available. However, it's absolutely our goal to help people who have experienced homelessness find permanent housing from the Pro Lodges in particular. And we've had some really great success. We were able to secure federal resources through the CARES Act late last year. And since then, we've found permanent housing for over 150 people.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all the questions.
Thank you, Chris, very much for serving as pool reporter today. We've reached the end of the questions that have been submitted. This has gone very quickly. Thank you for your participation. I'm going to turn it over now to Dianna again for some closing remarks, and then we'll be done for the day. Thank you again, Dianna. Here, we'll turn it over to you.
Sure thing. Absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to thank you folks for spending time with us today, and also acknowledge the real interest and investment that the press has made in this issue. So I look forward to working with you as we communicate what the city's doing, what our very important partners are doing, and some of the deeper questions around policy and funding that we know everyone has.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll remind reporters and want to thank them for participating, but also remind them that if you have any follow-up questions, or if there's anything that you want to ask about the people experiencing homelessness in Austin, please reach out to us in the Media Relations Office, and we'll be happy to get back to you as quickly as possible. Thanks again, everyone, and enjoy your weekend.
That down-home cooking sure is best. A little more gossip and a few more lies. Then everyone's hugging and saying goodbyes. The sun's going down, people have